The crystalline ships appeared at the edge of human space like floating cathedrals made of light and metal. Each vessel stretched over 3 kilometers long, their surfaces shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and breathe. Energy shields rippled across their hulls like aurora displays, beautiful and mesmerizing. The fleet numbered 30 ships arranged in a perfect formation that spoke of military precision and overwhelming confidence. On the bridge of the UN diplomatic vessel Harmony, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the alien fleet through the viewscreen. Her dark eyes remained calm, though every person on the bridge knew they were witnessing humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. Captain Miguel Rodriguez stood beside her, his military posture relaxed but alert. "They certainly know how to make an entrance," Rodriguez muttered quietly. Chen nodded slightly. The aliens had been transmitting messages for 6 hours now. Standard first contact protocols mixed with what could only be described as boasting. They called themselves the Galactic Concordat, a union of 47 species spanning 2,000 star systems. They had existed for over 3,000 years. They brought peace and order to the galaxy, or so they claimed. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "They're requesting we approach their flagship." "Take us in slowly," Chen ordered. "Let's be polite guests." The Harmony moved forward, dwarfed by the alien vessels. It was a small ship by human standards, designed for diplomacy rather than combat. Chen had chosen it specifically for that reason. Let the aliens see humanity's peaceful face first. The flagship of the Concordat fleet was the largest vessel Chen had ever seen. It looked like a massive crystal that had been carved by artists, all flowing lines and elegant curves. Lights pulsed through its structure in patterns that might have been communication or simply decoration. As the Harmony approached, a docking bay opened in the ship's side, large enough to swallow their entire vessel. Inside, Chen and Rodriguez led a small diplomatic team down the boarding ramp. The bay was enormous, easily capable of holding a dozen ships the size of the Harmony. The walls glowed with soft bioluminescent light, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and something else, something organic. The alien delegation waited for them on a raised platform. There were 6 of them, representing different species. The leader stood at the front, tall and reptilian with scales that shifted between blue and purple. He wore elaborate armor that seemed to be part technology, part living organism. His eyes were large and golden, with vertical pupils that focused on Chen with obvious intelligence. "I am High Admiral Zevthar of the Kathrani Empire," the alien spoke. His words translated instantly by technology Chen couldn't see. His voice was deep and resonant. "I speak for the Galactic Concordat. Welcome humans to the greater community of civilized species." Chen bowed respectfully. "I am Ambassador Sarah Chen, representing the United Nations of Earth and the 17 billion humans across 6 planets. We are honored by this meeting." Zevthar's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. 6 planets. Impressive for such a young species. Our records indicate your civilization has only existed for 10,000 years. You have done well to spread so quickly. We learn fast, Rodriguez said quietly. The alien admiral gestured, and holographic displays appeared in the air around them. They showed star maps, ship designs, and what looked like battle formations. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," Zevthar continued. "There are pirates, raiders, and hostile species that prey on the weak. The Concordat provides protection to all peaceful civilizations. We maintain order through superior technology and military strength." "That's very generous," Chen said carefully. "Let me show you why lesser species trust our protection." Zevthar led them to a massive viewing window that overlooked open space. With a gesture, 3 of the Concordat battleships moved into position several hundred kilometers away. What followed was clearly meant to be intimidating. The first ship fired what Zevthar called plasma lances, beams of superheated matter that could melt through asteroid belts. The second demonstrated gravity wells that could trap and crush smaller vessels. The third ship showed off phase disruptors that made matter temporarily intangible, allowing weapons to pass through conventional armor. The display was impressive by any measure. Each weapon represented technology that was clearly more advanced than anything humanity had publicly revealed. The other members of Chen's team whispered nervously among themselves, but Chen and Rodriguez watched silently, their expressions neutral. "Remarkable," Chen said when the demonstration ended. Her tone was polite but not awed. Zevthar's eyes narrowed slightly. These weapons can destroy entire fleets. Our shields can withstand attacks that would vaporize planets. The Concordat has never lost a war. I can see why, Rodriguez added. Your ships are very beautiful. Something in the captain's tone made the alien admiral pause. Beautiful, not powerful. Not terrifying, beautiful, as if they were art pieces rather than weapons of war. You do not seem concerned, Zevthar observed. Chen smiled gently. We appreciate the demonstration, Admiral. Your technology is clearly sophisticated, but humanity has learned that the most impressive weapons are not always the most effective ones. Explain, the alien demanded. Perhaps another time, Chen said diplomatically. For now, shall we discuss the terms of our relationship? What followed was what Chen had expected. The Concordat offered humanity protection in exchange for access to Earth's resources, specifically rare minerals and what Zevthar called integration into Concordat structure. In plain language, they wanted humanity to become a client state, protected but subordinate. Chen listened patiently, asked clarifying questions, and made no commitments. She had been a naval officer before becoming a diplomat, and she recognized a protection racket when she saw one. The Concordat had perfected a simple strategy over 3 millennia. Arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate superior technology, and offer protection that was really subjugation wrapped in polite language. It had clearly worked on 47 other species. Zevthar expected it to work on humanity too. We will need time to consider your generous offer, Chen said finally. This is a significant decision for our species. Zevthar's scales rippled, changing to a darker shade. I am disappointed by your hesitation, Ambassador. Surely you understand the reality of your position. The Concordat controls this entire region of space. You are alone, isolated with primitive technology. Without our protection, you are vulnerable. We understand perfectly, Rodriguez said, his voice harder now. Then you should understand this. Zevthar leaned forward, his massive form towering over the humans. You have 48 hours to accept our terms. If you refuse, you will be classified as a potential threat to Concordat security. We do not allow threats to exist near our borders. Choose wisely. Chen met his golden eyes without flinching. We'll send our response within your time frame, Admiral. Thank you for your hospitality. As the Harmony pulled away from the Concordat flagship, Rodriguez turned to Chen. That went well. He thinks we're terrified, Chen said quietly. He thinks we'll surrender without firing a shot. Are we terrified? One of the junior diplomats asked. Chen looked at Rodriguez and something passed between them, a shared understanding born from years of military service. Not even close, she said. Contact Fleet Command. Tell Admiral Okoro it's time to show our new friends what humanity has been building in the dark. Behind them, the Concordat fleet maintained its position, confident and patient. Zevthar was already composing his report, certain that humanity would capitulate. After all, every other species had. Why would these primitive humans be any different? He was about to find out. The emergency session of the UN Security Council took place in a bunker 300 meters below Geneva. Every major nation had representatives present, either in person or via secured quantum communication links. The room buzzed with nervous energy as diplomats and military advisors reviewed the alien ultimatum. They gave us 2 days to surrender our sovereignty, the Chinese representative said, her voice tight with controlled anger. 2 days. They don't see it as surrender, Ambassador Chen replied from her seat at the main table. She had returned to Earth immediately after the meeting with Zevthar. They see it as us accepting the natural order. They've been doing this for 3,000 years. Every species they've encountered has submitted. Then they haven't met species like us, the American general growled. Fleet Admiral Amara Okoro sat at the head of the military advisors, her dark skin and close-cropped gray hair giving her a distinguished appearance. She was 68 years old and had spent 45 of those years in space. Her calm expression revealed nothing, but those who knew her recognized the predatory stillness of someone calculating angles of attack. What do we know about their capabilities? The Secretary General asked. A holographic display filled the center of the room. It showed detailed scans of the Concordat fleet, their weapons, their shield frequencies, and their formation patterns. The data was far more comprehensive than what the aliens had voluntarily shared. We've had surveillance drones watching them for 3 weeks, Admiral Okoro said quietly, since before they entered our space. They didn't detect our observers. The room went silent. Several representatives leaned forward. 3 weeks? The Russian delegate said. They've been in our territory for 6 hours. They've been approaching for 3 weeks, Okoro corrected. We have stealth reconnaissance platforms stationed throughout the outer system. Long-range quantum sensors. The Concordat never saw them. They're very confident in their superiority, which makes them careless. She manipulated the display and new information appeared. Ship classifications, power signatures, weapon capacities, communication protocols. Their technology is impressive, but it's also standardized. Every ship in their fleet uses the same shield frequency. Their plasma weapons require a 3-second charging cycle. Their phase disruptors have limited range. They're designed to fight enemies who use similar technology. And we don't, Chen said, understanding. We don't, Okoro confirmed. She pulled up images of human warships. Unlike the elegant crystalline vessels of the Concordat, human ships were angular and brutal in design. They looked like flying fortresses, all armor plating and weapon batteries. No curves, no beauty, pure function. The Concordat thinks we're primitive because our ships look crude, Okoro continued. They judge technology by aesthetics. That's a mistake. Our ships are designed by engineers who spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. Every rivet, every plate, every system serves a purpose. We don't waste mass on making things pretty. The display shifted to show weapon specifications. Railguns capable of accelerating projectiles to 15% of light speed. Antimatter torpedoes with yields measured in gigatons. Directed energy weapons powered by shaped nuclear charges. Missile systems with AI-guided warheads that could think for themselves. These weapons already exist? The Japanese representative asked, shocked. Most for over 30 years, Okoro said. We've been preparing for contact since we found the wreckage. Everyone in the room knew what she meant. 60 years ago, an unmanned probe had discovered debris on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, wreckage from a spacecraft that wasn't human. The discovery had been classified at the highest level and had driven humanity's military development ever since. Earth had known for 6 decades that they weren't alone. They had prepared accordingly. The Concordat doesn't know about the Titan find, Chen said. Their records say they last surveyed this system 200 years ago. They think we're still fighting with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Let them think that, Okoro said with a thin smile. Underestimating your enemy is the oldest mistake in warfare. The Secretary General cleared his throat. Admiral, what do you recommend? Okoro stood, her hands clasped behind her back. The Concordat has never faced serious military opposition. They've expanded through intimidation for millennia. Every species they've encountered has been peaceful, or at least unprepared for the scale of force the Concordat can deploy. They're used to winning through demonstration of power, so we demonstrate ours, the American general said. Carefully, Okoro emphasized. We don't want war, but we need to make it absolutely clear that humanity is not prey. I recommend we invite them to observe a demonstration of our defensive capabilities. Show them enough to make them reconsider their ultimatum, but not so much that they feel they have to attack us to save face. A measured response, Chen said thoughtfully. Show strength without humiliation. Exactly. We establish ourselves as equals, not subjects. If they're intelligent, they'll accept a diplomatic solution. If they're not, Okoro's expression hardened. Then we show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home. The vote was unanimous. The response would be sent within 12 hours, inviting the Concordat fleet to Neptune's orbit for what Earth called a proper demonstration of defensive capabilities. The location was chosen deliberately. Neptune was far from Earth, far from the major colonies, but close to humanity's primary naval proving grounds. What the Concordat didn't know was that Neptune's orbit contained the largest concentration of military hardware humanity had ever assembled. Hidden weapons platforms, stealth ships, experimental systems that existed only in classified files. If things went wrong, humanity would have every advantage. As the meeting adjourned, Chen approached Admiral Okoro privately. Do you think they'll accept the invitation? They'll come, Okoro said with certainty. Zevthar is arrogant. He thinks this is another chance to intimidate us. He'll bring his fleet expecting to see primitive weapons and crude technology. He'll want to crush our spirits before we formally surrender. And what will he actually see? Okoro's smile was cold and sharp. The reason why predator species don't make good prey. The response was transmitted 8 hours later. Admiral Zevthar received it aboard his flagship, reading the message with what his crew would have recognized as amusement. The humans wanted to show off their weapons. How quaint, how typical of lesser species to posture before inevitably submitting. They suggest we meet at their Neptune facility, his second-in-command reported, a world in their outer system. Distance from their homeworld suggests they fear collateral damage to their precious Earth. Or they're preparing an ambush, another officer suggested. Zevthar dismissed the concern with a wave. With what? We've seen their ships. Simple fusion drives and kinetic weapons. They're centuries behind our technology. This demonstration will only serve to demoralize them further. Accept their invitation. Bring the full fleet. Let them see the futility of resistance one final time before they surrender. As you command, Admiral. The Concordat fleet set course for Neptune, confident and unhurried. Behind them, at the edge of sensor range, a dozen tiny human drones recorded every movement, every communication, every tactical decision. The information flowed back to Earth in real time via quantum entanglement communication, a technology the Concordat thought was impossible. Admiral Okoro watched the alien fleets approach from her command center deep within Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of every human vessel in the system. 6 warships at Neptune, visible and obvious. 43 more scattered throughout the outer system, cloaked and silent. Hundreds of automated weapons platforms disguised as asteroids, comets, and debris. They're bringing their entire fleet, her tactical officer reported. All 30 ships. Good, Okoro said quietly.
Captain Rodriguez, is the Harmony clear? Ambassador Chen and all diplomatic personnel have been evacuated to Mars Station, Rodriguez confirmed.
He was aboard the warship Indomitable now, back in his true role as a combat officer. We're ready to proceed. Then let's teach our guests something about human history, Okoro said. For 3,000 years, they've been the biggest predators in their part of space. It's time they met the apex predator of Earth. Prepare for demonstration protocols. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that this doesn't turn into shooting war. And if it does? An officer asked quietly. Okoro's expression was grim. Then we make sure humanity survives what comes next, at any cost. Neptune hung in the darkness like a blue jewel, its storms visible even from orbit. The Concordat fleet arrived in perfect formation, their crystalline ships catching the distant sunlight and throwing it back in prismatic displays. 30 vessels of overwhelming power, arranged in a sphere that could fire in any direction simultaneously. It was a formation designed to intimidate and to demonstrate complete tactical superiority. Facing them were 6 human warships. The vessels were brutally functional compared to the alien craft. The lead ship, designated Indomitable, was 2 kilometers of armored hull studded with weapon ports and sensor arrays. It looked like someone had taken a city block and launched it into space. Angular, ugly, built to take punishment and keep fighting. They brought 6 ships, Zevthar's tactical officer reported, disbelief clear in his voice. Against our 30? The High Admiral studied the human vessels with a mix of amusement and disappointment. They're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Perhaps both. Open a communication channel. Admiral Okoro's face appeared on the view screen, transmitted from her command center on Ganymede but appearing to come from the Indomitable. She was dressed in a simple gray uniform with minimal decorations, her expression calm and professional. Admiral Zevthar, she said with a slight nod, thank you for accepting our invitation. I'm Fleet Admiral Amara Okoro, commander of Earth's United Defense Force. Your ships are outnumbered 5-1, Zevthar said bluntly. This demonstration seems unnecessarily dangerous for your crews. Okoro's lips curved in a slight smile. We appreciate your concern, Admiral, but I think you'll find that numbers aren't everything. With your permission, we'd like to begin our demonstration. For safety purposes, I'd ask that you activate your strongest shields. You want us to raise shields? The alien admiral seemed confused. Are you planning to fire on us? Not at all, Okoro assured him. But the weapons we'll be testing are quite powerful. We want to ensure there's no accidental damage to your beautiful ships. Purely a precaution. Zevthar considered this, then gestured to his crew. Raise shields to maximum. Humor them. The Concordat fleet shields activated, energy barriers rippling into existence around each vessel. They shimmered with enough power to stop asteroids, missiles, and anything else the aliens had encountered in 3,000 years of dominance. "Thank you," Okoro said. "Now let me introduce you to something humanity developed about 200 years ago. We call it a railgun." The Indomitable rotated slowly, bringing its main spine-mounted weapon to bear, not toward the Concordate fleet but toward a decommissioned satellite drifting in space 50,000 kilometers away. The target was small, maybe 10 meters across, and clearly marked with reflective paint. "A kinetic weapon," Zevthar said dismissively to his crew. "Primitive technology. We abandoned such things millennia ago." The railgun fired. There was no sound in space, but every sensor on every Concordate ship registered the event. Electromagnetic fields, stronger than anything the aliens had seen, accelerated a tungsten penetrator rod down a 300-meter barrel. In less than a second, the projectile reached 15% of light speed. The satellite didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next moment there was only an expanding cloud of vaporized metal and a shockwave of plasma that lit up every sensor screen on the Concordate flagship. The Concordat's sensor officer checked his readings 3 times before speaking. "Admiral, that projectile had the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon, and they accelerated it too. How is that velocity even possible with magnetic acceleration?" "Impressive," Zevthar admitted grudgingly. "But raw power means nothing if you cannot hit your target. How accurate is such a weapon in combat?" "Very," Okoro said simply. She transmitted targeting data to the Concordate fleet. The railgun had struck within 2 centimeters of the satellite's exact center of mass, at 50,000 kilometers, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. "Our AI targeting systems calculate trajectories accounting for gravity, relative motion, and enemy evasion maneuvers. We rarely miss." The alien admiral shifted uncomfortably but maintained his confident posture. "Still, kinetic weapons are barbaric. Energy shields can deflect them. Our phase technology makes them irrelevant. Perhaps you'd like to see something more modern then," Okoro suggested. "This is one of our antimatter torpedoes. A different human ship, the Valkyrie, launched a single missile. It moved relatively slowly compared to the railgun projectile, accelerating at a leisurely pace toward another marked target, this time a small asteroid tumbling in Neptune's orbit. As the Concordate watched, the torpedo closed on its target, adjusted course 3 times to match the asteroid's rotation, and detonated precisely at the moment of contact. The explosion was visible from Earth. Matter and antimatter annihilated each other in perfect conversion of mass to energy. The blast registered on sensors across the solar system, a flash of gamma radiation and X-rays that outshone the sun for a fraction of a second. The asteroid, which had mass measured in thousands of tons, became a rapidly expanding sphere of plasma. Every Concordate ship recorded the detonation. Their computers analyzed the energy release, checked the numbers, and checked again. The yield was measured in hundreds of gigatons, more powerful than anything in the Concordate's arsenal by a factor of 10. "How much antimatter was in that warhead?" Zevthar demanded. 4 grams, Okoro replied casually. "We can produce about 20 kilograms per year at our current manufacturing capacity. Each of our warships carries an average of 50 antimatter torpedoes." "Do the math, Admiral." Zevthar's scales had gone pale, shifting to a sickly gray color. His crew was silent, processing the implications. 4 grams had destroyed an asteroid. 20 kilograms per year meant thousands of such weapons. 50 per ship meant the 6 human vessels facing them carried enough antimatter to glass a planet. "These weapons are," the alien tactical officer began. "Terrifying?" Okoro suggested. "Yes, we learned to manufacture antimatter safely about a century ago. It took another 50 years to develop stable containment systems for weaponization. The physics are complex, but the principle is simple. Nothing stores more energy per unit mass than antimatter. It makes for very efficient weapons." "Efficient," Zevthar repeated hollowly. "You call instruments of apocalypse efficient. Compared to what comes next, Admiral, antimatter is conventional." Okoro's expression remained calm, almost gentle, as if she was explaining something simple to a child. "Would you like to see our directed energy weapons? We've had lasers for centuries, of course, but they're limited by thermal bloom and power requirements. We solved both problems about 30 years ago. The Righteous Fury, a warship that looked even more aggressive than the Indomitable, rotated to face a string of 3 asteroids arranged in a line, each separated by several hundred kilometers. Warning alarms sounded as power signatures spiked across its hull. "That ship is charging something massive," a Concordate sensor officer reported. "Energy readings are off the scale. X-ray laser, nuclear pumped," Okoro explained. "We detonate a shaped nuclear charge in a specialized chamber. The explosion energizes metal rods that emit coherent X-ray radiation for approximately 50 nanoseconds before vaporizing. In that 50 nanoseconds, we can deliver petawatts of power to a target the size of a coin from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away." The righteous fury fired. The X-ray beam was invisible to the naked eye, but sensors tracked its path. It struck the first asteroid dead center, flash heating the surface to plasma temperatures in microseconds. The beam penetrated through, emerged from the back, and continued to the second asteroid. Same effect, penetration continued to the third asteroid. By the time the beam dissipated, it had cored through 3 separate asteroids like a needle through fabric. Each asteroid was several hundred meters of solid rock and iron. Okoro said quietly. "The beam passed through all 3 as if they weren't there. Now imagine that beam hitting a ship. It would punch through your shields, through your hull, through every deck and compartment, and out the other side. Your crew wouldn't even have time to know they were dead." Zevthar's voice was strained when he finally spoke. "These weapons violate every principle of civilized warfare. They're indiscriminate, cruel, designed only to destroy. They're designed to win," Okoro corrected. "Admiral, humanity has fought wars for 10,000 years. Against animals, against nature, against each other. We've perfected warfare the way other species have perfected art or music. We've learned every lesson written in blood. We know what works. And you think this makes you superior?" The alien admiral's voice held anger now and fear. "That your capacity for destruction makes you worthy of respect?" "No," Okoro said softly. "Our capacity for destruction makes us dangerous. Our choice not to use it unless necessary makes us civilized. There's a difference, Admiral. One I hope you'll understand." She paused, then added almost gently, "These demonstrations have shown you our conventional weapons, the ones we built before we knew you existed. Would you like to see what we've developed since we learned we weren't alone in the universe?" Around Neptune's orbit, previously undetected power signatures began activating. Dozens of them, hundreds. What the Concordate had thought were asteroids. The tactical display on the Concordate flagship showed a nightmare. Red icons bloomed across every screen, surrounding Zevthar's fleet in 3 dimensions. What had been empty space moments ago was now revealed as a carefully constructed kill zone. Hundreds of weapons platforms, dozens of ships that had been invisible to every sensor. Power signatures that made the earlier demonstrations look like children's toys. "This is not possible," the Concordate tactical officer whispered. "Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy. Nothing can hide from us. Nothing." "Apparently something can," Zevthar said bitterly. He straightened his posture, trying to regain some measure of dignity. "Admiral Okoro, I demand you cease this theatrical display immediately. The Concordate does not respond well to threats. This isn't a threat, Admiral." Okoro's voice remained calm and measured. "This is Defensive Grid Omega. We've had it in place for 12 years since the moment we confirmed alien technology on Titan. Every major body in our solar system has similar grids. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Earth has 3 times this level of protection. You asked what we are? We're the species that doesn't believe in fair fights. We believe in overwhelming tactical advantage and redundant defensive systems." She manipulated. Her controls and new data flooded the Concordate sensors. Ship classifications they'd never seen. Weapon systems that violated their understanding of physics. Technology that shouldn't exist. These platforms you see are armed with what we call relativistic kill missiles, RKMs for short. Okoro highlighted one platform on the display. Each missile weighs approximately 10 tons and can accelerate to 90% of light speed within 4 minutes. At that velocity, they carry more kinetic energy than our largest antimatter warheads. They're also nearly impossible to intercept, because at 90% of light speed, you have less than a second between detection and impact. "Impossible," Zevthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Accelerating mass to such velocities would require more energy than most stars produce. It would, if we used conventional propulsion. We don't. Would you like a demonstration? No. The word came out as almost a shout. Zevthar realized his crew was staring at him and he forced composure back into his posture. No demonstrations with those weapons. We understand their potential. I think you don't, Okoro said quietly. But I'll take you at your word. Moving on. You noticed our communications are instantaneous, yes? No light speed lag, no delay, no matter the distance. The Concordate's communication officer nodded slowly. We noticed. We assumed you had relay stations we couldn't detect. Quantum entanglement, Okoro explained. We can communicate instantly across any distance because the particles we use for transmission are quantum linked. Change one, and the other changes simultaneously, regardless of separation. It means our coordination is perfect. Every ship, every platform, every weapon in this system can act as one unified organism. Your fleet has communication delays. Ours doesn't. In combat, that's the difference between victory and extermination. Captain Rodriguez spoke up from his position on the Indomitable's bridge. Our targeting systems use AI that can predict enemy movement patterns based on 3,000 years of human warfare data. We've fed it every battle, every tactic, every strategy we've ever recorded. It knows how thinking beings react under pressure. It can predict your evasive maneuvers before you make them. A new alarm sounded on the Concordate flagship. One of their ships, a cruiser at the edge of the formation, had begun moving. Its captain, perhaps panicking or simply wanting to test human capabilities, had ordered a retreat. The ship's FTL drive started charging, preparing to jump away. Admiral, the Dauntless is attempting to leave, the tactical officer reported. Stop them! Zevthar roared, but he was too late. The cruiser jumped, disappearing in a flash of twisted spacetime. For a moment, there was silence. Then, 10,000 kilometers away, the ship reappeared from FTL, and in the same instant, a human RKM struck it amidships. The impact was cataclysmic. The 10-ton missile, traveling at 90% of light speed, had more kinetic energy than a supernova for a fraction of a second. The Concordate cruiser didn't explode. It didn't shatter. It simply ceased to exist, in any meaningful way, converted to an expanding sphere of plasma and high-energy particles. The flash of Cherenkov radiation, as faster-than-light particles decelerated, lit up sensors across both fleets. Every Concordate officer watched in horror. The ship had been there, and then it wasn't. 1,000 crew members erased from existence in less time than it took to blink. You killed them, Zevthar said, his voice hollow with shock. No, Okoro said firmly. They attempted to flee, which triggered automated defense protocols. The AI calculated their FTL exit point, positioned an RKM, and fired. The weapon reached intercept velocity before their jump was complete. Your captain's decision killed that crew, not us. This is what I've been trying to explain, Admiral. Our systems are automated. If your fleet makes threatening moves, our AI responds faster than conscious thought. That's why I asked you to raise shields earlier. That's why I'm being very careful to explain everything we do. One wrong move from either of us could start a war neither side wants. The Concordate fleet had gone absolutely still. No ship moved. No weapon charged. They were paralyzed by fear and the horrible understanding of just how outmatched they were. Ambassador Chen's voice came over the communication channel. She had been silent throughout the demonstration, but now she spoke with the authority of someone who had seen both sides of humanity's nature. Admiral Zevthar, I want to tell you something about my species. We've fought wars for our entire existence, not just against other humans, but against our own planet. Earth tried to kill us with ice ages, plagues, predators, starvation, and disasters. We survived by becoming the deadliest thing on our world. Then we nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons, biological warfare, and conflicts that killed hundreds of millions. Her face appeared on the view screen beside Okoro's. We learned from that. We learned how to cooperate, how to build peace, how to work together. But we never forgot how to fight. We can't forget. It's burned into our DNA, written in our history, embedded in every instinct. You've had peace for 3,000 years because you've been the strongest power in your region of space. You forgot what real war means. We never had that luxury. So you built all this, Zevthar said, gesturing at the weapons surrounding his fleet. All these instruments of death. For what? To conquer? To dominate? To survive, Chen said simply. When we found alien technology on Titan, we didn't know if you were coming back. We didn't know if you were peaceful or hostile. So we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. That's what predator species do, Admiral. We plan. We prepare. We make sure that if conflict comes, we have every advantage. Rodriguez added, from his bridge. Our ships aren't beautiful like yours because we don't build them for show. The Indomitable took a direct hit from your plasma lance during your demonstration earlier. Did you notice? Zevthar's eyes widened. What? When? While you were focused on the asteroid displays, one of your ships fired a testing shot at us. Low power. Probably meant to gauge our shield strength. The beam hit our forward armor. Rodriguez pulled up hull camera footage. It showed a bright lance of plasma striking the ship's nose, ablative armor burning away in a shower of sparks. The underlying structure remained intact. Our armor is designed in layers, ablative outer shell to disperse energy weapons, composite inner layers to stop kinetic impacts, redundant systems throughout. You could hit us with everything you have and we'd probably survive long enough to kill you all. The reality of the situation settled over the Concordate fleet like a suffocating blanket. They had come to intimidate primitives and found apex predators instead. They had brought 30 beautiful warships and found themselves surrounded by hundreds of functional weapons designed by a species that had been perfecting warfare since before the Concordate existed. So what now? Zevthar asked quietly. You've proven your point. We're outmatched. Do you demand our surrender? Our submission? No, Okoro said. We want what we've always wanted. To be left alone and treated with respect. We want peace, Admiral. But peace between equals, not peace between master and servant. The Concordate does not negotiate with inferior species, Zevthar said, but his words sounded hollow even to himself. Then don't think of us as inferior, Chen suggested. Think of us as different. You built a civilization on unity and cooperation across the stars. We built one by surviving the galaxy's most dangerous planet and then learning not to destroy ourselves. Both are achievements. Both deserve respect. Admiral Okoro was about to continue when new alarms sounded. Her expression tightened as she checked her displays. Admiral, her tactical officer said urgently, we're detecting FTL signatures. Multiple ships incoming. It's a Concordate fleet. Estimate 100 vessels. They're jumping in at the edge of the system. Zevthar's face showed surprise, then a complicated mix of relief and dread. Reinforcements. I sent for them before we arrived. Standard procedure when encountering unknown species. You called for backup before you even met us, Rodriguez said flatly. Of course, the Concordate does not take chances. The standoff lasted for 17 hours. Neither fleet moved, neither side fired, but everyone knew that decisions made in the next few hours would determine whether two civilizations went to war or found peace. In the Concordate flagship, Zevthar sat in his command chamber surrounded by holographic displays, showing the nightmare scenario unfolding across Concordate space. Human ships surrounded the Kathrani homeworld. Human ships orbited the Talasian colonies. Human ships held position near every major population center in the Concordate's core systems. How did we not detect them? His science officer asked for the 20th time. Our sensors are supposed to be infallible. Our sensors were designed to detect threats we understood, Zevthar said quietly. These humans use technologies we didn't think were possible, stealth systems that bend light and sensor beams around their ships, cold-running reactors that produce no heat signature. They've been watching us for weeks, maybe longer. We were blind and arrogant. His communication officer spoke up hesitantly. Admiral, the Concordate High Council is demanding a full report. They want to know why enemy ships are surrounding our worlds. They're asking if we're at war. Tell them I'm negotiating, Zevthar said, and tell them to do absolutely nothing threatening. No fleet movements, no weapon charges, nothing. If shooting starts, we might be able to destroy the human ships in our space, but they'll take our core worlds with them. He opened a channel to Admiral Okoro. The human woman appeared on his screen looking tired but alert. Behind her, He could see the orderly chaos of a military command center preparing for possible conflict. "Admiral," Zevthar began, choosing his words carefully, "your strategic position is impressive and terrifying. But I must ask you directly, are you bluffing? Would humanity really commit genocide against billions of concordate civilians if we attack you?" Okoro's expression softened slightly. "Honestly, I don't know. I hope we never find out. But Admiral, you need to understand something. Every human ship has an AI with standing orders. If Earth is attacked, if humanity faces extinction, those AIs are programmed to ensure we don't die alone. They'll fire automatically. No human hesitation, no mercy, no regret. It's our final insurance policy. Mutually assured destruction. It kept us from nuclear war for centuries. It'll work here too. So we both have guns to each other's heads," Zevthar said bitterly. "No," Chen's voice cut in as she joined the conversation. "We have the ability to mutually annihilate each other, but neither of us wants to. That's not a standoff, Admiral. That's a foundation for honest negotiation. When both sides know war means death for everyone, peace becomes the only logical choice." Zevthar's scale shifted to a contemplative blue-green. "The Concordat has maintained peace for 3,000 years through superior force. Our system works, for you," Rodriguez said, joining the call. "But what about the 47 species under your protection? Did they all join willingly? Or did they submit because they had no choice?" The alien admiral's silence was answer enough. Chen pressed the point. "We've been analyzing your Concordat structure, Admiral. It's not really an alliance. It's an empire with pretty words. You absorb species, take their resources, and give them protection they wouldn't need if you weren't the biggest threat in the first place. It's a protection racket on a galactic scale." "We bring order," Zevthar protested. "Without the Concordat, there would be chaos, war, suffering." "Maybe," Okoro acknowledged. "But that's not your decision to make for everyone. Here's what humanity proposes. A real treaty. Equal partnership. We don't join the Concordat. We recognize each other as independent sovereign powers. We establish diplomatic relations, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. If someone threatens you, we'll help defend you. If someone threatens us, you'll do the same. But neither of us rules the other. The Concordat Council will never accept humans as equals," Zevthar said. "You're too new, too primitive by our standards. Then we'll stay independent and keep our fleets exactly where they are," Okoro said with a shrug. "Your ship's near our space. Our ship's near yours. Eventually, someone will make a mistake and we'll all die. Is that really preferable to accepting that maybe, just maybe, you were wrong about us?" Zevthar stood and walked to the viewport of his flagship. Outside, Neptune's blue face reminded him of his own homeworld, so far away and currently surrounded by human warships. His people were afraid. The High Council was demanding action, and he was trapped between his civilization's pride and its survival. "Let me tell you about the Talesians," he said quietly. "They were the 40th species to join the Concordat. Beautiful people, brilliant scientists. They had developed fusion power and early FTL travel when we encountered them. We offered them protection and they refused. They said they wanted to remain independent, to chart their own destiny." "What happened?" Chen asked, though something in her voice suggested she already knew. "We convinced them," Zevthar said. "We surrounded their world with ships. We demonstrated our weapons. We gave them 48 hours to decide. They chose integration over annihilation. They're still beautiful people. Still brilliant scientists, but they serve the Concordat now. They have no choice." He turned back to face the screen. "I tell you this because I realize now that we've been doing to others what you're doing to us. And it feels wrong, it feels cruel. I never questioned it before. The system worked. We brought peace and order. But you're right, Ambassador Chen. It's peace through fear. Peace through submission. Not real peace at all." "It's not too late to change," Chen said gently. "Systems can evolve. Empires can become genuine alliances. The Concordat doesn't have to fall. It just has to transform into something better." "And you think humanity can teach us this?" Zevthar asked. "A species that nearly destroyed itself with nuclear weapons." "That's exactly why we can teach you this," Rodriguez said. "We learned the hard way what happens when you choose domination over cooperation. We paid for that lesson in blood. Hundreds of millions died in our wars. We don't want anyone else to pay that price." Admiral Okoro pulled up new data on the displays. "We've been in contact with some of the species in your Concordat, quietly. through channels you don't monitor. The Talasians. The Vryn, the Koresh, others, they're not happy, Admiral. They stayed because they had no choice. But if they saw a powerful species stand up to the Concordat and win the right to remain independent, it might inspire them. Change might come whether you want it or not. You're talking about destabilizing 3,000 years of peace, Zevthar said, alarm in his voice. We're talking about replacing enforced submission with genuine alliance, Chen corrected. Admiral, humanity doesn't want to destroy the Concordat. We want to improve it. Make it something worth being part of voluntarily. Imagine a Concordat where species joined because they wanted to, not because they were afraid, where different civilizations contributed their unique strengths instead of being absorbed into homogeneity. That's the future we're offering. Zevthar was quiet for a long time. His crew watched him, waiting for orders. Around Neptune, human and Concordat ships maintained their positions, weapons ready but not firing. Across dozens of star systems, hundreds more ships waited for word that would determine whether they would be instruments of peace or harbingers of apocalypse. Finally, the alien admiral spoke. I need to show you something. Something the Concordat has kept classified for 2,000 years. He transmitted data to the human fleet, old records, ancient files. They told the story of the Kathrani before the Concordat, when they were just one species among many, fighting for survival in a hostile region of space. They showed wars, devastation, billions dead. The Kathrani had been on the edge of extinction when they developed the technology that would become the Concordat's foundation. We created the Concordat because we were terrified, Zevthar admitted. We'd seen what uncontrolled warfare could do. So we built a system to prevent it. We would be so strong that no one would dare fight us. We would enforce peace through overwhelming power. It worked. For 3,000 years, there's been no major war in Concordat space. But there's also been no real freedom, Chen said softly. No, Zevthar agreed. There hasn't. And now I meet humans and I see what we could have become. You survived your own wars. You found peace without subjugating others. You built cooperation without domination. You did what we were too afraid to attempt. He straightened his posture, making a decision. I will recommend to the High Council that we accept your treaty. Equal powers, independent but allied. It won't be easy. Many in the Concordat will resist. Some may even try to continue the war. But I think you've given us a chance to become better than we are. That's all we ask, Okoro said. A chance for both our civilizations to grow. The treaty negotiations took 6 weeks. Representatives from Earth met with the Concordat High Council on a neutral space station. The debates were intense, sometimes hostile, but gradually an agreement took shape. The Sol Accords, they called it. Humanity would remain independent. The Concordat would restructure itself into a genuine alliance of equals. Species that wanted to leave would be allowed to do so. New species would be invited, not coerced. The Talasians were the first to request independence under the new system.